All right, yeah, my name's Owen. I am 17. I'm going to be a senior this year. I've been coming to church here ever since I was a baby. My parents grew up in this church. Both of them did. My grandparents grew up in this church. My grandma was actually the principal at the school when there was a school here. But yeah, with that, if you do not have your Bible today, you can go grab one back by the soundboard while I get my stuff ready. All right, so the title of my message today is Rescued for a Reason. And we're going to be talking about Jonah. How many of you know who Jonah is? Okay, a few of you, yeah. So a little backstory on who Jonah is. Jonah was a prophet of the Lord, and he was called to go to Nineveh to preach against the evil ways that they were doing. And when he received this calling from God, he did not want to go. And instead, he got on a ship and ran to the city of Tarshish. And on his way to Tarshish, there was the ship that he was in encountered a big storm. And while they were in the storm, the sailors were fearing for their lives. They didn't know what was going on, and they were praying to their gods. And their gods did not have anything to say to them. And it says in Jonah chapter 1, verses 5 and 6, it says, "Fearing for their lives, the desperate sailors shouted to their gods for help and threw the cargo overboard to lighten the ship. But all this time, Jonah was sound asleep in the hold. So the captain went down after him. 'How can you sleep at a time like this?' he shouted. 'Get up and pray to your God. Maybe he will pay attention to us and spare our lives.'" So while the sailors were freaking out and having a panic attack from the storm, Jonah was sound asleep in the bottom of the boat. And I feel like that's kind of a relationship to maybe some Christians nowadays who are spiritually asleep and not helping the people around them. Like maybe for us, like we're not doing what God's calling us to do to our friends at school who maybe do not know Jesus and they're going through their own storms, and you are not helping them by bringing them to church or inviting them into the church community. But before we get further into Jonah's story, first we need to understand this. We were never designed to live life by our own strength. We need to become Christ-dependent and not self-sufficient. So that's my first point. Becoming Christ-dependent and not self-sufficient. For Jonah, he wanted to be self-sufficient. He wanted to take his own path. He wanted to not listen to God. He thought that the best way for him was to just run, get on the ship, get away from what God's calling him to do. And he just thought that was the best way. And then, if you guys know the story, Jonah ended up getting caught in the storm, thrown overboard, and eaten by a fish. So obviously that did not work out very well for him. But when you give up your pride, your self-sufficiency, and lean on God, trust what He has for you and His plans, He will make your path straight and give you a way out of the storm that you might be caught in. So if you want to flip with me to Ecclesiastes 9:12, give you a second to get there. It says, "People can never predict when hard times might come. Like fish in a net or birds in a trap, people are caught by sudden tragedy." We all might have our own sudden tragedy, maybe not as big as Jonah getting eaten by a fish, but maybe there was a divorce in your family, or someone that you knew unexpectedly died, or maybe you moved, or maybe you had to switch schools, or just maybe something big that changed your routine, or just had a big impact on your life. But when you try to tackle that alone, when you try to take that hard challenge without God, it's going to be a lot harder, and you won't be able to get through it as well as if you become Christ dependent and trust that God will come into your life and invite Him into your life to help you get through this storm or a hard season. But here's the thing. Sometimes life just gets busy, and even if you are doing good in your devotions and you're trusting God, life just comes. You have school's coming up around the corner, fall sports, work, or relationships, and life can just get busy. But God, in His love, He will help you slow down, maybe stop you, and just give you some time to just relax and not let life get over you. And that brings me to my second point. To let God stop you or slow you down when life starts moving too fast. But that doesn't mean that you can slow down everything. How many of you have ever procrastinated before?
No.
Yeah, I know, I have too. So some bad examples of when you should not slow down, or maybe doing your homework, like you'll say, oh, I'll do it later, or I'll do it tomorrow, and then you forget about it, right? Or maybe cleaning. I have a story from when I was younger. Mom, you're in the room, but so me and my brothers, we used to love playing games, video games to be specific, and we would play all day when we were like 10, 12. And I can specifically remember many times when we would be playing the game, my mom would leave for work and tell us to make sure that you take care of the dishes before she gets home. And we'd be like, okay, Mom, we'll get it done, don't worry. And we're playing the games, right? We're like, oh, we'll do it next game. Okay, no, you died too fast. So you got it. Okay, I'll do it next game. And before you know it, you kind of forget about it, right? And then your mom comes in the door. She's not very happy, right? So basically what I'm just trying to get at is don't procrastinate, because otherwise you're gonna have to face the wrath of your parents. Some other things that you should definitely not be procrastinating on is maybe doing your devotions. It can be a hard thing to stay consistent, wake up and do your devotions every day. Maybe you woke up late and you just don't want to do them, you don't have time to do them. But it's always good to just find some time. If you can't do it right away in the morning, just find some time before you go to bed, and try not to push something like that off. Now, as for Jonah, Jonah did not want to listen to God, and his escape route was the ship. And he thought, well, if I get on the ship, then I just won't ever have to go to Nineveh. And he got on the ship, and God stopped him with a storm. And he stopped him, and then, okay, sorry, 1 second. So he got on the ship to run to Nineveh, and he thought that that was the best plan, right? But God stopped him, because God knew what his plan was for him. God knew that if Jonah would have gotten the ship, and if God did not stop him, then he would have continued in a life of rebelling against God, not listening to what God called him to do. So the point I'm trying to get at here is God sees what we do not see. God knows that if you're walking into something that you're going to fail, or you're going to fall into sin, and he will stop you before you get that far, or he will stop you along the way to turn you back to make the right decision and to fulfill what he is asking you to do. And I got another story. So for those of you who do not know, me and my family, we went to live on an island in the Southern Pacific. It's called Saipan. My dad had a business opportunity there, and our whole family moved for 3 to 4 months. And it was a really fun time. It was great to get out, and at first I was super excited for it. It was a lot of fun. And I realized that moving to Saipan, it kind of disrupted my routines that I had built here. The routines of just doing daily stuff here, and I realized that the routines that I had here were not centered around Christ, and I was not being consistent in my devotions. And moving to Saipan kind of disrupted that routine and helped me realize that I needed to make a new routine to be more consistent in my devotions, be just getting more consistent in prayer and talking to God. So we're in Saipan, and we went on a hike. We went on many hikes, but there was this one hike. We were going with a buddy that we met. It was me, Bryson, Tagan, and Landon. And on that hike, I happened to have a rock fall and hit me in the head. It hit me in the back of my head. I think there's a picture of it. If you don't like blood or gory stuff.
Oh.
So yeah, that's what happened. It looks pretty bad, right?
No.
There's another picture, I think, of the staples. So I don't know if you can see, but so I ended up getting 4 staples in the back of my head.
Oh, it wasn't a rock, it was a boulder.
I did not see the rock.
Boulder, okay?
I was told it was a boulder. I was knocked out after it hit me. But yeah, so that happened, and so they took me to the hospital, and the doctors told me that if that rock would have hit me anywhere else, it hit me in the hardest spot of my head, which is just a crazy blessing of how God let it hit right there. It could have hit me up here and done more damage, or my neck. So that was just crazy. Even though that I did get hurt, God was still protecting me from further damage or injury. And so when it happened, one thing that the guy that we were going with, his name was Joel, he told me, I have it in here. Let me find it, sorry. He said, things like this happen that make you more thankful to wake up each day. Because I feel like that rock could have easily killed me. It was definitely a scary experience. But it was also a way, I feel like, of God showing me that I need to lock in and start being more consistent, because you never know when your time might come. And so after the rock hit me, I think it was back up a little bit. So we found a church in Sedan pretty fast after we got there, and our church was helping with a 10K run, and I'm not much of a runner, but we signed up for this race. We ran it, and then it was a 3-day race. We ran the 10K, the 5K, and then another 5K. It was a 3-day race. I ran it, and I enjoyed it, and it was lots of fun. And then we found out about this half marathon that was happening, I think, a month later, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll try and run this half marathon. So I signed up for this marathon, and then I got hit in the head, and it kind of, I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe I'm not gonna run this half marathon, and I think it happened 8 or 9 days before the half marathon, and I was pretty bummed out about it because I was pretty excited to run this half marathon. It sounded like it was gonna be I mean, I wasn't much of a runner, but it sounded like it'd be pretty cool to do that while you're on a tropical island. But the cool thing is, this brings me to my third point, is I believe God rescues or heals us for 2 reasons. So as those 8 days were going by, after I got hit in my head, I started to feel better each and every day. Miraculously, I did not suffer a concussion from that rock hitting me, so I was able to run the half marathon, and I ran it, I don't remember my time, it was 1 hour and 50 minutes. For those of you who don't know, half marathon is 13.1 miles, which was just crazy that I was able to run that half marathon just 8-9 days after I got hit. And it was just crazy that God healed me that fast. And so this brings me back to my third point, is God rescues us for 2 reasons. Number 1, for his glory. I believe that God healed me to run that marathon, to just show how his glory and how he can heal even now. Going back to Jonah again, even though he rebelled against God and he did not listen, he came back and he got spit up out of the whale and went to Nineveh and fulfilled what God called him to do. He preached to the city of Nineveh, and they repented, and God took back what he was going to say about destroying them and saved them all. If Jonah would not have listened to what God's call was for him, then most likely the whole city of Nineveh would have been destroyed. But because God saved Noah from the storm and saved him from the whale, he was able to go and preach to Nineveh, which led to God's glory being spread through the whole city of Nineveh, which I'm pretty sure it was so big it took 3 days to walk through it all and see it all. And another story of how God saves to show his glory is in Acts chapter 28. So Paul was on a ship to go appeal to Caesar, because he got accused of some stuff, and he was going to appeal to Caesar. And on the ship, the ship got in a storm and ended up wrecking on an island called Malta. And on Malta, Paul met some of the islanders who were very friendly to him, and they were going to make a fire. And when Paul was going to start the fire, a snake jumped up and bit his hand, and it was a poisonous snake, and the islanders were waiting for him to swallow up and die. And just a little bit after, nothing happened. Paul was just fine. So God rescued Paul from the shipwreck and from the poisonous snake so that he could go and show his glory to these people. It says in Acts 28, verses 8 through 9, "As it happened, Publius' father was ill with fever and dysentery. Paul went in and prayed for him, and laying his hands on him, he healed him. Then all the other sick people on the island came over and were healed." So Paul, even though he had these hard things, he had this storm and was bit by a snake, God healed him, and he was able to show his glory through Paul by healing these people, so that they could know the glory of God. And going back to my second point on why God can heal us or rescue us from a storm is to continue his good plans for us. It says in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I have good plans for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and give you hope in a future." So I believe that God will save us and rescue us for those two reasons specifically, and to continue his plan for us. Later on, just after Paul was saved by the snake in the shipwreck, it says in 28:30, "For the next 2 years, Paul lived in Rome at his own expense. He welcomed all who visited him boldly, proclaiming the kingdom of God and teaching about the Lord Jesus Christ, and no one tried to stop him." So basically, Paul was able to, so God saved Paul from these two things, and he was able to go on and live 2 years free of any expense and under the protection of the Roman guards to preach the word of the Lord and to just help others learn about what God has for them. Another thing Paul did during the 2 years that he was in this house was he was able to write a couple books of the Bible. How many of you, your favorite book of the Bible is Philippians or Galatians or Ephesians? Paul wrote these books and I think 3 other ones while he was in this house that he got to because God saved him from the shipwreck and from the snake. If Paul would have died in either of those things, we never would have gotten the book of Philippians or Galatians, and maybe even a bunch of these people that Paul ministered to in this 2 years, or the people on the island of Malta, would have never heard of the glory of God and how God saves people. So, worship team, if you want to come up. Maybe you've been caught in your own storm. Maybe you are stuck in a storm. Maybe you don't know what to do, don't know how to get out of it. Just know that God has not abandoned you. When Jonah was stuck in the storm, when Paul was stuck in the storm, God stayed by them. Even though Jonah was still rebelling against God, God was right there with them. Even while Jonah was in the belly of the fish, he prayed to God and thanked him for not abandoning him. So remember to turn to God, lean not on your own understandings, and then take advantage of the second chance that God has for you when you come out of a storm or a hard time. Because you never know when your day will come. As a fish is caught in a cruel net, birds taken in a snare, so are people caught by evil times or rocks that fall unexpectedly upon them. So don't wait to be obedient. You don't know what your obedience means to someone else. You don't know if your obedience of talking to this person or talking to someone at school, you don't know how that might change them, how that might affect them years down the road. You don't know how your small encounter with them or your small act of obedience might mean to someone else.